All right, this is weekly development meeting. Today is May 30th. We're going to check in on how Backdrop itself is coming along. But before we get into that, I did want to say we have a new contrib project this week, Semantic Views, got ported to Backdrop. So thanks everybody for working on that one. And then let's talk about our websites. Backdropcms.org, we talked about in the last meeting, outreach meeting. So if anyone wants to see how that's coming along, you can watch that. I just did want to say, I think the homepage demo button can go up at any time. We just need to make sure that the other ways to install Backdrop page looks okay. So we need to find the view or the panel or the layout or whatever it is that's in there that's doing that and look at it and make sure it's presentable. And if it is, then we can switch the button out. Translation site. Olaf has been doing a ton of work on the translation site lately, so thanks, Olaf. I went ahead and pushed a couple of changes yesterday that should make it easier to manage translations. So originally you could upload a translation file and mark them as needing review, but in that case, every single string would need to be approved by an administrator. We decided that, especially if you're bulk importing those strings from Drupal, that didn't really make any sense. So we've disabled the radio button that lets you set them all needs review. So now when you upload a file, they all just go in and they don't need to be approved, which is great. And we're also going to change the default for these bulk uploads from Drupal to multiple contributors rather than a single contributor. And that way we're not attributing all of the people who did translations for Drupal, all of their work, to one person who happened to upload the file in the Backdrop.
Sorry, Jim, what did you say about the demo button? What's the plan? Are we doing that?
Yeah, we just need to make sure the other ways to install Backdrop page looks good.
Okay, because just wanted
to report layout or view.
Just wanted to report that I've been using the button extensively, and it no problems. So
okay,
good.
Do we have that? I've seen it before, but I'm not sure where it is. Were you saying that one of our tasks is to actually find the page that we had created previously? Or do we have a link or URL that we could?
Yeah, it's either a layout or a view, but I don't know where it is or what its URL is.
It's funny. It's not in the handbook or anything.
No, it's because no one's ever seen it before. We don't want them to see it until we are sure that it looks okay. So it shouldn't be linked anywhere.
Let's see. That's funny.
I know that all the content types are there with content in them, and I'm pretty sure there's a view, but I don't remember if it has a page display or if there was a layout or if there's not a layout and it is a block display. I don't know what status that is, but I know that the content is there.
So we hid it so that people can't see it. Now we can't find it.
I've seen it once before, but I don't remember whether it was like the preview on the views page or if it was real. But it's somewhere. We'll just find it.
All right, I think I found it.
Yay.
All right, I think it is /try backdrop.
That sounds good.
And it is a view.
Hooray, that looks like it. This looks like what I remember. Hey, it even looks pretty good.
Yeah, that's the one.
All right.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, we should probably. What is this? These are service providers. Should we actually add even though it's redundant with the homepage? Should we add the
demo button?
Demo thing here as well?
Maybe we should just put it at the top so that it's not actually part of the list, but there's just like a button at the top that would say like demo site. Or do you want it to have a like logo and a explanation?
Yeah, I think it might be good just to have it be like the other ones, actually.
Okay.
Demo site.
I think we should put it at the bottom then.
At the bottom?
A tugboat logo on it? Then we could say like, this demo site brought to you by Tugboat. It could be a good way to like, I don't know. I'll let you think about it. You can create the node. I'll let you do that.
Okay. Thank you. You'll let me create the node.
Yes. You can create it, put whatever you want in it. But I think the logo field might be required. So
Yeah. I was, because it's kind of like officially sanctioned. I was thinking maybe it would have something be like more
well, you can figure it out.
generic.
We're gonna move on.
Yeah. We can figure it out. Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. Let's move on.
All right. Okay. Thank you for finding the page. It looks okay. Yay. Okay. Outreach meeting info. Okay. Translation site. Oh, so now that we have an easier way to upload translations from Drupal, I was wondering if that might be a good job for intern over the summer to go through all of the languages from Drupal and add the languages and then upload all of the string translations for the UI, at least for core. And then we could add stuff like, views and other modules, email link, stuff that might already have translations for Drupal that we could put into Backdrop. Downloads. Yes, no, maybe not.
Yeah.
I don't know if we need someone to actually go through and test them all, but I thought having them there would be a good first step. Another thing too is we had a comment in the forum where somebody said, hey, I'm going to work on translations. Can you tell me how the translations thing works? So it might be good on the homepage. We don't have any way for anyone to get, I guess in the sidebar it says download translations. But I was thinking maybe we should put the downloads for the latest version of Backdrop on the homepage and for all the languages. Rather than, because that other grid, it's like, which one do I want? Like, we don't really need to, I think it's useful to have this for all versions, but I think for the homepage, like your initial version should be like, here's the latest version.
You're talking about the localization site now?
Yeah. Sorry, that's what it's in.
Localized.
So when you land on the homepage, you want a translation of Backdrop. And it's kind of hard to find translations. And then also, I'm not really sure how this is supposed to work, but the version numbers are a little weird. Like, I don't know what the X means. I don't know. I don't know how it works. Maybe I'll look at the Drupal site and see if I can figure out what they do.
So are these files being added manually?
Yes. So what happens, and I think this is what happens, is when a new version of Backdrop Core comes out, somebody has to manually run the file that will generate all of the strings that are in Core and upload it here. And then if you wanted that site to be translated into a language that's not currently on the site, you go to Drupal.org and you download the version for Drupal, and then you come here and you upload this version, and then it'll tell you, like, even though it's 100% of strings from Drupal, it's only 75% of strings for Backdrop. So all of that process right now is manual, but we do have an issue in the queue to run the string puller outer when there's a new version of Backdrop to run automatically, so that we should have one version for every release. We don't yet have that. We only have the releases that people have done.
So that table on the download translations link includes back to like 1.6.
Yeah.
So maybe we don't need all that. Maybe like a 2 or 3 latest.
I mean, I think we should provide all of these because we never know what version someone's running. I'm not sure they all need to be on this page. Like, if we had an easier way that would be like, find your version and only showed the supported versions, I would be totally fine with that. But most of this thing is kind of hard-coded to the way Drupal did it. It's not in views or anything that's easy to adjust. So we just need to be a little bit careful in like how we go about changing it so we don't lose things or break things. But I agree. It's a lot on this listing.
And the more versions we're going to have, this is going to get
more complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So add 1 or 2 versions and then a link to older like version downloads. Yeah. And I see that it has like minor. So I see 112.2, 112.1, and 112.0. Whereas I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. The releases are entered in here as correct, like 1.13.0, 1.13.1, etc. But on the downloads page, there's an X there, and I don't know where that's coming from.
Yeah.
But maybe
It might be a weirdness because we're using semantic versioning and we have 3 digits, whereas Drupal had only 0.
but you still think it wouldn't add an X. Like Drupal doesn't have any. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's only one set of. I'll try and figure it out.
Yeah.
Maybe Drupal only has one set of translations for all of Drupal 7 because they try not to change them between versions.
Yep.
Could be. We could also do that with ours too, where like if we had one for 1.13. Let's see what that looks like. No, didn't change anything. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, no, that's better.
Yeah. Maybe ask Olaf what that X is there for. He might have more. Like there might be a reason.
I don't even know what these check marks mean. I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. Anyway, I have more to learn. All right, back to the agenda. Backdrop CMS progress report. Turn it over to Nate.
Hey, man, sorry, I've been all over the place. I want to add one more thing to backdropcms.org in that we did the cutover last night of backdropcms.org, the flagship website, over to the new Debian-based PHP 7.2 server, which is super great. That means that all of our sites that are still in use, Gregory, DCU, not included in that category. All of them are migrated off of the old server, and we're not using the old server for any of the main sites anymore, which is great. We also ran the UTF-8 MB4 update, or more commonly known as the emoji update. And so now all of the backdrop sites across the spectrum are all now emoji compatible, which is great. So we can start putting smiley faces in our bodies and URLs. Yeah, that's all I had to say about that. Yeah, on to the status report. Let's see. We released Backdrop 1.13.1. I think actually more than a week ago. I think we've had another meeting since then. That addressed a backwards compatibility issue with the entity type method had been made static and broke a number of contrib modules that provide custom entity types. That change was reverted to prevent the backwards compatibility break, and then 1.13.1 included that fix. So that was just about the only fix that was in the 1.13.1. There were a couple of others, but that one was the most notable. And we pushed that out prior to the expected 2-week timeline. The expected 2-week timeline means that we would make another release pretty imminently, 1.13.2. Currently, there's only 3 additional bug fixes that are in that version. However, one of them is kind of important. The self-updater does not currently work because we added some new test modules that were inside of the profiles directory that are now getting picked up. And when you try to self-update, it throws an error saying that it doesn't know what type of files or what type of extensions some of those modules are, because it was missing type equals module in the .info file. So that's been fixed in issue 3793. And with our current expected schedule, like I think a good question is like, is that fix alone plus the expectation of putting out a release 2 weeks after the current version, like, is that good enough for us to say, okay, let's go ahead and cut the next bug fix release 1.13.2, and then push that out to all of the upstreams, Pantheon and Docker and what have you.
Yeah, I think at the most wait another week.
Oh, really? Oh, at most. Okay.
At most, yeah.
Yeah, we have one issue that's been brought up here in the agenda that we have an issue with the views operator in when you're using is none of, that seems to have been broken due to some changes that we pulled over from 777, I think. It's issue 3614. Status of that one is that we have a solution that fixes it, but that we need tests to confirm that it's actually fixed. And the tests are actually already written. We just need to re-roll the pull request to include the test from a different pull request that was closed. So I think there might be some desire that maybe we could fix that problem before 1.13.2 is pushed out. But I'm not really sure that we should wait. You know, like waiting on releases seems like, you know, that's a bad policy to get into. We should just have more releases.
Are there enough changes to release now for a new bug fix release?
There's only 3 issues right now that have been merged in. I think the RTBC queue is I think it's empty or close to empty.
Okay.
And I think that cannot self-update issue could be enough to warrant it on its own.
Okay.
Yeah, as in do a release like nowish, like today or tomorrow or over the weekend, you mean?
Yep, today or tomorrow. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll be around to help.
Okay, super.
With that views thing, I was kind of confused because then the solution that was working for us is not the one that is working for D7, and but the tests are working for us. And then we have the crosspots for the views module, so I'm not sure that whether with the crosspots that we're gonna do, eventually we're gonna revert the change that we made, because it seemed to me, I haven't had that issue, like I haven't looked at that issue for like at least 2 or 3 weeks, but it seems to me that we might be reverting the changes that we are going to do now. I might be wrong though. That was my only concern.
Yeah, I think that, well, that's exactly why we need the tests, I think, because if the tests actually prove that what we've done, which is different than 777, fixes the problem, then if we were to revert it, then the test would start failing.
Yeah, okay.
Makes
sense.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Makes sense, so long as we don't touch the tests as part of the as part of the crosspots.
Yeah, I sure hope not. If we start changing the tests to make it work with something that's broken, that would make me sad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Speaking of tests, as a follow-up to the 3793 thing, the issue that I mentioned before we started recording, how about fixing the issue with, so it happened twice or 3 times already, not picking up the updater being blocked because it wasn't picking the proper .info files with the type thing. So we need to fix the test. We had 3 separate tests for layouts, modules, and themes, and it wasn't taking into account that these can be included under profiles, so it wasn't checking the /core profiles folder at all. But I think that the problem is that this happens at the test side, but the updater actually does check the profiles, and this is where we sort of like come across issues with the updater. So I think that we should make the tests match whatever the updater is doing. And I looked into whether we can sort of like come up with a smart solution to account for cases where you have profiles that include layouts, modules, and themes, and also sometimes modules that include themes like simply test. And like it's going to get really messy with the regex that would cover those. And I think that we are overcomplicating things whereas we could be just checking all the .info files everywhere. But I need direction on that. I filed a pull request for it and it's green, so the tests pass. But I was kind of hoping that I would do that before the merge, because now the problem is actually fixed, so we don't know that. So we needed a test that would actually pick up the problem.
Yeah, you can file a pull request, or in that pull request,
Switch the branch, yeah.
or just temporarily remove one of the type equals module lines and then make sure that it fails, and then you'll feel confident about it.
I might do that. I'll do a commit that does that, and then I'll revert it just to see the test. Okay, cool.
Wait. But if you had in the test a version of the file that didn't have the type line, then the test would fail.
Yes.
But you wouldn't be able to ever have a passing test.
No, we just want to make it fail once, confirm that the test failed intentionally, and then put it back. And then
you don't want to commit a version of the test that you confirm fails.
Right.
No, we're not going to commit it. We're going to
wait. Even if you included a specific info file that was going to fail the test, then the test would always fail. Okay. But I would do it with module, theme, layout, and test file. Like remove the type line from all of those and make sure that it.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking to do one of because the chains that got merged had those two situations. One module that included a theme with a .info, and then a profile that included a module, I think, and it wasn't tested. So I wanted to do these two cases as well, at least.
Okay, but also check a test, like a test.info file, because I don't think any of those have a type line. And so if we're going to check all of the files, then all of the tests should cause that to fail if it was checking all of the files.
Yeah, so also I thought I was under the impression that there was a support for type equals test, but obviously we don't have
But
that.
I don't think we have it in our core files. Yeah.
But if we were to be, because there's a distinction. There's some tests that actually include modules and things in order to test that functionality. So in that case, these are modules.
Well, it's a different file though. It's a tests.info. So we could specifically exclude that.
But from looking at those tests, it would be so much easier if we required a type equals something for everything specifically.
But the test files are different. They are actually parsed with PHP, I think. Like instead of reading them like an INI syntax, it's like a I don't know how to explain this, Nate.
It's still
is it INI?
No, it's the same thing where it's like it's very, very similar to INI syntax, but it's still parsed by backdrops, like parse info file. That it's just really close. But you're right that it is different in that it has nesting levels in the tests.info file, and we don't have nesting in all of the other types of projects, modules, themes, and layouts.
Yeah, and I think that the tests that run actually limit the module's depth so that it doesn't check sub-modules, it checks only the module or something.
Oh.
I saw something like that.
Well, that should definitely parse everything, including the nested ones, because those are the things that have tricked us a couple of times.
Yeah.
That the nested modules are missing those type
anyway,
of modules.
Point is that I'm going to need more eyes and sort of like direction for that. And whether
what's the issue number?
Let me just find it really quick.
Oh, I found it. 3829. It's the second one in the queue right now.
Yep, that's the one. So the pull request is actually that our file is actually removing the 3 tests and replacing them with a generic one that says test project info file content instead of specific theme layout. But I'm not sure if that's the right way to go.
Cool.
Nevertheless, it did pick up 6 files that were missing a version that were not picked up before.
Mm-hmm. Nice find.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really simple. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it looks wonderful.
Yeah, but I don't know if that's the right way to do it. It doesn't break anything else, or it doesn't seem to break anything else. But
Yep. Yeah, it looks it's really good.
I just need to remove the. I have an allowed project types array there. I just need to remove the test bit because we don't have anything like that, unless we decide that we want tests to have a type equals test or something.
Mm-hmm.
So that we
Yeah,
can
you might. Interesting. Okay, and it just is coincidence that tests.info are excluded here because the regex just doesn't, it only
Yes.
matches single word.info file names, which is probably fine because we don't have dot, you can't have a dot in the module name.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, looks good.
So yeah, all that remains is that I'll do that test that we said before to sort of like revert a type from each of the 2 cases that failed, that caused the problem, see if it fails, and then revert those changes. That's all I need to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Well, shall we proceed with the next version, Backdrop 1.14?
Yes, please.
Okay. So let's continue planning. Let's go ahead and say tomorrow for the release rather than today.
Yeah.
Now that I'm looking through the queue, I see that there's also one PHP 7.3 issue that could also potentially be merged. That's trivial. That would be nice to get that. And so, yeah, one day to kind of get some of these things tidied up. 1.14 will be the next minor version of Backdrop. It will be coming out September 15th, 2019. Feature freeze on September 1st. We've got 3 issues that we're going to be talking about as having focus today. The first of which is digital signatures on packages, issue 1992. Once again, John Franklin, thanks again for all of your work, which has been accumulating over months now to develop the CodeSign module and updates to project modules to support it. This past week, I got through reviewing some of the changes to project module. Issue number 25 within the project module makes it so that the project release XML is now extensible, making it so that we can insert CodeSign stuff into it rather than project module just creating the XML and then not having any ability to change that. That's now been made more flexible. While doing the code deployment yesterday, I found out that we also had an XML output problem that I made issue number 35 and merged that change in. That makes it so that PHP notices or warnings are no longer thrown or suppressed when serving up XML files. Next up is reviewing CodeSign itself, the module that is expected to be merged into core, because it looks like even if we use a contrib-based version of it for Backdrop CMS itself, like in the meantime, there's a lot of reviewing that needs to be done there to make sure that what has been created is suitable for core itself. It looks like the way that this thing is structured is that we need the new core module, installer module would depend upon it in order to actually validate these signatures. And then that same core module would be used in the signing process by backdropcms.org itself when it creates the packages. So that's next up. And that's where I'm at with, or where we are at with issue 1992. Fieldable files. Jen, looks like you are advocating for this one. So
I am. I really think that we need to be focused on making Backdrop as similar to Drupal 7 as possible in the next 2 years. And so working on getting our files to match file entity module in Drupal 7 is really important to me. So I guess that means I better work on it. So since last week, I grabbed Doc Wilmot's pull request, which was pretty close, just a little messy. It was a little messy because Drupal 7's file entity solution is a little messy. And so I wanted specifically to focus on the user experience part of it and try and take the very strange configuration of fields and turn them into settings forms, much like many of our other fields, how they behave. And so far I have rebased the pull request and that's it. But yeah, I have a plan. We'll leave it at that.
Yay, plans are good.
Yeah.
And then Clonos, you're working on trusted host patterns, port over from Drupal World 2568.
Yep. So that needs code review and testing and perhaps feedback. Ultimately, when the code goes in, I also need to work on the documentation on the b.org side just around this new feature supported. And I'm advocating this because it does bring parity with Drupal 8, but at the same time, it's not as intrusive as Drupal 8, or should I say as restrictive. And it's also part of the security sort of like meta series of features that we sort of like to focus on or focus in order to show that we do take seriously the security, related issues. So it's pretty close. Last time someone reviewed it was months ago. So I just need eyes, someone to code review, and perhaps feedback if I need to change anything. The only thing is that it's hard to test the functionality in the PR sandbox because it supports also adding those settings in settings PHP, and that's not possible in the PR sandbox. But yeah.
Great. Okay. I think that's it for the things that we've got. More to be determined for 114.0. Jen just typed in here. Do we have any other new issues or advocates for specific issues in 114?
I didn't see anything else. I think what we need to do is maybe through the Gitter channel, just make a call for people to pick an issue. Like, the usual suspects, like the people that usually work on Backdrop.
I think that's another thing too. Like, I know there are people who are really passionate about specific issues but may not have time right now. That's okay. If you want to add your name to an issue and not work on it for a while, that's perfectly fine. As long as you're planning on working on it for this release, that's all that's really necessary. Also, I know there are people who don't know which issue to choose and are waiting for inspiration, and that's also fine. But I would love to get more on our roadmap, even if it's only theoretical, just so we can look like we're having stuff. But
yeah, we can ask that question though to like the people that have not picked an issue. Just say who's looking for issues, or inspiration, sort of, and then suggest things to them. One thing that I would like to point out, not specifically for 114, but towards that, is that we seriously need to get feature parity. Commit parity with the views thing. There's tons of commits that have happened in between. So I've worked, I think, see how we split it into smaller chunks. I've worked on the 2 or 3 of them. So we just need someone to review it. Okay. Usually Herb is really good at doing that and then flagging it for Nate to have another look.
Okay. And those are all, I think, tagged with the 113.1 milestone. I can have a look at some of those too.
That's why I said it's not specifically for 114, but it needs to start sort of like gradually doing it. Yep. And I think that doing it all at once sort of like risks breaking things. So maybe slowly as we
more in this
things,
release, a few in the next one.
Yes, yeah. So we can detect sort of like breakages.
Yeah.
And plus the more pull requests we file for other issues, that we have more sort of like chances for people to test the PR sandboxes and pick up small things that we missed or breakages.
Sounds great. Okay. And then I added a section on here for 115. I don't know if this is something we need to talk about in our weekly meetings, but I wanted to bring it up and see if you guys were interested, especially now that we're like limited to one issue per person per release. I thought there might be some people who are like, I really want to do two things, but I'm doing one thing now and I'll do one thing later. And then we could at least have, we have the milestone already. Do we want to put anything in it? Yes, no, sort of question. And then if we do want to put stuff in it, we want to talk about what's in it. Do we want to like have that be on our roadmap? It's like, this is what we're planning on working on in the future.
Yeah, it could be in the 1.x roadmap, like the vague one, the more inclusive one.
Well, 1.x also has like a million things in it.
Yes, I know.
It's sort of like right now the 1.x milestone is this is possible in 1.x as opposed to it'd have to be moved to 2.x. I don't think it's indicative of a priority. I'm not sure that's a good thing, but that's just kind of how it's.
I was talking more not about the actual milestone in the GitHub thing, but the milestone thing on the roadmap.
Oh, on the roadmap.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I started because I want to work with smaller issues as well that are feature requests and they don't qualify to go in bug fix releases. So either for those ones or for ones that do qualify, I started putting myself as an assignee and started working on them just because I'm bored over the weekends. And but if you see anything assigned to me and you want to pick it up, just go ahead and do it, because sometimes I never have the time or I'm scattered brained and I just don't return to that, or ping me.
Okay.
On Gitter.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've done the same thing. Every now and then I'm like, oh, I should check which issues are assigned to me and like remove some if I'm not working on them, but I always forget.
Yeah. That's mainly because, see, that the issue that I'm advocating for is basically waiting for someone else to review and give me feedback, and that is not happening. So in the meantime, I do want to work on other things. And there's no way with the current sort of like policy that we adapt for me to say, oh, I don't want to advocate this for anymore because I want to work on something else, and I return advocating it once someone has provided feedback. That's a bit, anyways.
All right. Let's see. We also have an item for 115. Are we ready to move on?
We just covered that.
I bet. Okay.
So yeah, I just asked if anyone thought we should, number one, add things to that milestone. Like, I want to have more than one issue, but I'm not allowed to have more than one issue. So I thought this might be a loophole where I could have one issue in 114 and one issue in 115. But I didn't know if that was worth it. And then I also thought it might be useful to indicate to the world sort of not only what our priorities for the next 4 months, but what are our priorities for the next 8 months.
Which is good.
Could be a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's like a positive thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then is it worth talking about these issues in our weekly meetings or not? We could just, if there's something to say, you can say, and if not.
If we manage to get them to a point that they're ready, we can discuss them as in.
We can move to 1.
Yeah, 14. move them to 114 or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I think that's a good idea. If there's things that, so 114 items will be recapping every week, kind of whether there's activity or not. And 115 items, like if there's something that's happening, great. Let's talk about those as well.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yep.
All right, I will go choose issues.
Yeah.
Let's see. Agenda, general discussion. Okay, this is an interesting question that came up. This is issue number 3822. And the question is, should there ever be a situation in core where the question in the user interface will override the theme's ability to change it? So in the world of Drupal, the theme always wins the conversation of like, oh, is there a radio button that says this is red or blue? And your theme can say, I don't care if you said red or blue, I'm going to make it green. But we ran into a couple of issues with people testing things in Backdraft where they went to use user interface to set something, And then they said, oh, I can't see it working in the sandbox. And that's because our theme had, for example, removed system theme.css. So if you add new theme CSS into that file, you'll never see it in Basis. And somebody recommended that maybe we could have settings in blocks, for example, include their own style sheets last. I had a visceral no reaction to that because I think that'll be super frustrating if we have the theme always wins except is going to be something that is going to be hard for people to learn. So on like the learnability front, I'm like, no, I think the theme always should win. But then Peter brought up the fact that like Backdrop has very different principles around this, where we say that the end user should come first and that developers should come last. And so doesn't that mean that breaking the user interface by somebody creating a custom theme, or in this case, like Basis, shouldn't the block setting win in the battle over the theme setting? And so I feel very conflicted about it, because I want the user to come first, but I also want developers to know how to work with the code. So I think it's a valuable conversation to be had, and I wanted to know if anyone here had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so it was Herb that suggested that these go into the theme settings, similarly to the way that we add color support, for example, in themes. And it's a good idea if you look at it from a developer perspective. But what I would like to do, but I see it's impossible, hint, is that if you have a setting in the user interface and you somehow have the ability to know which theme is being used, then if this has been overridden by settings, do not show that setting in the UI. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In other words, we have a setting, just to make it to bring an example so that we make it clear. So we have this issue where we are trying to add the Backdrop logo and have two versions of it, a black on white and a white on black. There's a setting that Peter has added to the powered by block. And I thought, okay, let's test this. But when I tested it, the changes weren't reflected in the theme for Basis because it doesn't have support for it. So in that case, I would like that setting. I would like Backdrop to know that this theme that I'm using as the front-end theme does not have support for this setting, and do not present that setting to me at all, because otherwise we have a what the fuck thing.
So I think the way that I've handled this in the real world is when a theme breaks a setting, I use the alter in the theme, and I do a form alter, and I disable that on that particular block. And we could do that in Core. We could do that in Basis, where we know Basis doesn't support that, and we can turn it off. We can't do it in a way where all of the forms are automatic, and they can tell whether the theme is overridden them or not. I still think because the theme comes after Core, the theme needs to make that call. I also, like in all of my Backdrop themes, I often form alter the block form and add description text to the classes to let people know what classes are available. So I am a big alterer in my themes, which is maybe not common, but it is possible to do that. Another thing I was thinking too is that we could just make sure that all of these settings that we're introducing in Core have support in Basis. And so if we do add all this stuff, we could just make Basis the good example of like how to deal with this. And then anyone who wants to do a contrib theme of copying Basis, it'll make it really complicated, like maybe not such a good base theme, but at least there's an example there for people to follow. If they don't want it, they can remove it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good thought. The other thing that I was thinking is, last time I touched the color module, I remember that it was a setting that you would add on the theme, like a color something section. So if a feature, like say a drop-down menu or something in Core relies on such support, then we could be checking which themes support it, and then have a thing underneath that says Basis supports this. But if you're using any other theme, you won't see this, or something like that, or make it disappear. Because making it disappear from the, like conditionally showing those controls, those UI controls, depends on the simplest use case would be that a person would use a single theme for their front end, but usually they have more than one themes. So how would Backdrop know what people are actually using their front end?
Right. And it could be that like the same page is displayed in multiple different themes.
Exactly.
So then you have like some that support it and some that don't, and there's only one block configuration setting.
And you need to make assumptions. And
Yeah.
this is the very same reason why we had the issue with the .info files, that we were making assumptions.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting conversation to have in terms of the perspective of the user experience. But I think that most of the technical solutions are sort of not viable from an assumption standpoint. Both of you also just mentioned multiple themes. Nate added a comment into the chat that said that your theme has to be active on the admin side in order for it to work on the admin forms, right? So like my form alters don't work unless it's the same theme on the back as on the front. And that's also pretty uncommon. Now that Backdrop has an admin theme that's pretty good, I would imagine most people will leave the admin theme as the admin theme. And then your front end theme would never affect like your block configuration settings, because those are always using the admin theme. So yeah, it's definitely a bit messy. And that same thing would apply if it was a theme setting, right? Anything that your theme is doing.
As a compromise, because this might take longer for us to figure out an ideal solution. I know it's very unelegant, but at least if we have a warning on those UI, the controls in the UI, where we know that they might have issues like that, maybe have
Well, that's
a notice.
every setting, though, could be overridden by a theme.
Yeah,
Because
right.
the theme always is the last thing.
It's just that this use case, because I was testing, brought it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're right.
But like almost every setting can be ignored by a theme and hard coded. Like you, for example, like what's your custom block title? Oh, well, you just put in a template file and you hard code it instead of printing the title, and now that's irrelevant. So I think it's this is a slippery slope where if we just say your theme always wins, it's very easy for people to understand, at least from the theme developer side, where they're like, oh, okay, I can always override the things I don't like. And you can, I think maybe we just need to communicate to the user, not on every individual form field, but something more globally, like custom themes may make hard decisions or something. I don't know.
Yeah. One thing to consider there is that people that have access to those settings are not like thinking it on the level of sort of like the user. As you have content authors, they will not come across these things. So the people that will be coming across those things would be site builders. They not necessarily have a coder background, but they might sort of like understand how internals work. This does not apply though to newcomers, like people that come from WordPress would not know how Drupal and Backdrop work.
Yeah.
So for them, things like that would be
tricky.
WTFs, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard problem to solve, and have everything. Let's keep a discussion. So it's good that Peter filed that issue. That let's take it there and just brainstorm on ideas.
Okay. Anything else we should discuss today?
Can't think of anything else. Maybe this was because, sorry, I missed the outreach meeting before. If no one else has to add or discuss anything, see, I mentioned that email from the conservancy that they were asking stickers.
Yeah.
From us. Are we doing that?
Yeah, I figured I'd send them stickers. They also asked for an update so they could tell people how everything's going. That seems hard.
We're doing exciting. We're keeping them secret.
I would love help with that. I could just say everything's going great. We just released 1.13. Here's a blog post. If we had a blog post, that would probably be a good place to start. But
yeah. And I said that I was going to work on that blog post. I'll try to find time to do it, but then I was, as always, drawn to more interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'll start it on a draft on backtopcms.org, and then I'll leave it in some kind of unfinished state. And anyone who has any time who wants to jump in and like add screenshots or fix words or add stuff is welcome to. How does that sound? And at least it'll be there. We'll have something. So when we make our release soonish, we'll have some.
Yeah.
All right. Also, if anyone knows how to make animated GIFs, I could do some training on that. Just leave it at that.
What are you looking to do?
Just like sometimes when we have blog posts, there's like cool animated GIFs that's like, this is how this thing works. And I don't know how to do that. I can only do screenshots. So if anyone knows how to like record a video and make it an animated GIF.
Yeah, I'm using an app. Let's chat after the recording ends.
Okay. Yay.
It's open source as well.
Love it. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, then let's go ahead and wrap this meeting, and we will meet again. Next Thursday is the Backdrop mini camp. And so it is not very likely that Nate and I or Tim will be around to run the meeting. But if anyone else wants to run the meeting, we do have a document on how to do it. We just need to make sure we get you set up with access to the Backdrop YouTube thing. I'm not hearing a volunteer from Greg, so we'll just leave it. Like, we don't have a volunteer by Tuesday or so, we'll probably cancel the meeting.
Sorry, what was that for? For what meeting?
We're
Sorry,
starting next week's weekly meeting because we'll all be mini camping.
Okay.
The usual suspects will be together talking about Backdrop. Probably via video, so it wouldn't be the end of the world if we canceled it because there will be lots of videos produced that day. But
I was going to raise my hand, but still I have a lot of things going on. Sorry.
it's fine. If you are distracted and can't pay attention to the request for activity, then maybe that's an indication that you shouldn't volunteer. So that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
All right, let's go ahead and end today's meeting and see you in chat and in the issue queue.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.